with the signing of the first COVID relief bill under President Joe Biden, having happened, of course, yesterday, which will deliver $1,400 stimulus checks along with $300 expanded unemployment benefits, a child tax credit. It's pretty impressive. You also have additional money for states, additional money for vaccines, etc. This happened. This passed under a strictly party line vote. Now, after that happened, Fox guest and Wall Street Journal editorial board member Kim Strassel went after Biden for the fact that it wasn't bipartisan enough. So that's interesting. Let's see what she has to say about it.
We actually had 5 COVID bills prior, and every one of them under the last administration, and every one of them bipartisan, resoundingly bipartisan. This is the first COVID bill that we've passed done entirely on a party line. How does that count for unity? Now, the press is going to call it that, and they're going to say it's great and it helps, but this is one of the problems that Molly just described, which is when you go down the road of propaganda, it's not just that you're not being true to all of your readers and watchers out there, but you become part of the propaganda, and then your own reputation rests on keeping up the falsehoods. We saw this with Russia collusion too. When you bought into it, pretty soon the press couldn't back down from it because they knew to do so would undermine themselves. And so they propped up Biden all during the campaign, and now they have to make it sound as though he's delivering on these promises, even though the facts simply show otherwise.
All right, so that's an interesting pretzel to tie yourself up in, all in order, of course, to attack Biden and the Democrats. Look, Fox News is going after Biden pretty unsuccessfully, I have to add. And I'm not saying that because I'm a fan of Joe Biden. I'm just saying that those attacks are not resonating with anyone outside of the Trump base, and of course outside of some progressives who are also like have Biden derangement syndrome. And so anyway, that said, that's what's going on in Fox News. But overall, he's got like over a 60% approval rating, or at least up to 60% in some polls, mid 50s or so in others. And so actually, the country thinks he's doing right now a fairly good job. But that's not on Fox News. They're really going after Biden unsuccessfully, but they're also harping on the cancel culture stuff. And so now this pretzel that she's tied herself in, it's extra salty. And so I'm gonna kind of break it down. So now it is true that Joe Biden ran on bipartisanship. That's one of the reasons that I, as a progressive, not exactly happy with it. Because right now, the Republican Party, as it stands, you can't work with them because all they want to do is basically block everything. Okay. They're not interested in governing. They're not interested in governing. It's also a fact that the bill had to be passed by budget reconciliation due to that fact. In fact, budget reconciliation was used to bypass a filibuster. The fact that this was guaranteed to be filibustered by Republicans is a problem. It is the problem. Okay. It's not even a discussion that we're having, right? The automatic assumption is, well, obviously Republicans are going to block it. Republicans are saying, yeah, of course we're going to filibuster it. Oh, all right. Well, okay. And of course, why is that the assumption? Well, look at the record. No Republicans voted for this. No Republicans were interested in voting for this. And before you say that it's because Democrats didn't reach out, well, you're wrong. Democrats bend over backwards to try to include Republicans on everything. Biden would have loved nothing more than to get Republican votes. He loves this. He's like, oh, bipartisan. I love bipartisanship. Republicans, what do you want? What do you want? We'll give it to you. We'll drop $15 minimum wage. Okay, we'll drop this. We'll drop that. Please vote for this so that I can say bipartisanship. And of course, that's they did. They pulled out a lot of more forward proposals in order to try to get Republican votes. It's funny. I wonder how many of the same Republicans, by the way, cried about bipartisanship. When they decided to jam tax cuts for the rich through reconciliation. I'm sure a lot of Republicans were like, no, we shouldn't do that. We should reach out to Democrats. No, they didn't. Or, I wonder how many Republicans cried about the lack of bipartisanship when Trump decided to do all those executive orders to kick out trans people from the military and remove temporary protective status from DACA recipients. Did they cry about not reaching out to Democrats? No, of course not. Of course not. So you see the hypocrisy here, okay? Especially when Strassel mentions the COVID bills under Trump, which actually were bipartisan. And they were bipartisan. There's a reason for that. It's because Democrats went along because it actually did do something for the American people. And Democrats did not block them for political reasons. They tried to put as much good stuff into those bills as they could, even taking better stuff out, as I said, to get Republicans on board. And it didn't work. Obviously, it didn't work because it never works, because Republicans are not a party that is interested at all in governing or doing anything. Again, $15 minimum wage got stripped out of the bill. Okay, no Republicans were going to vote for it. None. In fact, you even had, people who claim to be Democrats that really are not Democrats that also decided that they were not going to vote for it. Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin mainly. Okay, and so not only that, but they took the $1,400 instead of $2,000. Now, Trump himself, it is true that Trump wanted to do $2,000 in the last round of stimulus before. Now, Republicans, of course, laughed it off. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to give poor people $2,000. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? No. We're not going to do that. And, of course, Donald Trump wanted to do that because he at least kind of tries to understand populism a little bit. And it has no actual core conservative values. He just wanted to do, in this case, what was popular enough to try to get him reelected. And it didn't work, of course. But anyway, all this bending over backward, all this taking these bills out or these amendments out is to try to get Republican votes. And the reason that they didn't vote for it, as I said before, is that they are not a real political party. They are a reactionary movement. And so they only passed these two stimulus bills because, the Republicans, as I mentioned, during the Trump administration, only passed the two coronavirus stimulus bills because the donors wanted it. For one, the donors were screaming at them, don't let the stock market fall. Okay, you're going to pass these COVID relief bills because stonks. And, of course, because they wanted to win re-election. They were in power and they were going to be blamed if it didn't pass. Now, Republicans are in the minority. Democrats are in charge. And the result is, of course, constant blockage. And by the way, as critical as I have been of this bill, the fact that we don't have $2,000 recurring checks, the fact that we didn't include a $15 minimum wage when we should have been able to through reconciliation, the fact of the matter is it's still a decent bill. It's still a good bill. It will help people. My criticism is, again, thanks to this whole attempt at bipartisanship, which always continues to fail, is that even though there is good stuff in it, it didn't go far enough. And that's just not my opinion. That's also the opinion of experts, people who, economists that are like, no, you don't understand. You can't go too big. You can't go too big. You have to go bigger. And yet this bill was actually smaller than the Republican package proposed under Donald Trump. And so, I mean, come on. What I would have included, of course, is $2,000 a month recurring checks until summer, retroactive to the start of the pandemic, of course, student loan cancellation, $15 minimum wage, all that stuff. And so, but overall, like, hey, I'm happy with it. It's not bad. It's incomplete. It's incomplete. And it's not like the Democrats decided to sneak in hey, let's put more money to bomb Yemen in there. Okay. And as for that charge, of course, that Democrats were putting stuff into the bill that wasn't COVID related, Republicans, if you're making that accusation, sit down. Republicans trying to put an amendment to repeal the estate tax for the ultra wealthy. come on. You play that game too. Sit down, F off. Again, the point is, decent bill, good bill, glad it passed. We should continue to do more to help the American people. But since Democrats are in charge, the Republicans, they're voting against it. And that's it. They don't care about the voters, who, by the way, their base, even though that they would be helped by the provisions that I were talking about, as well as the actual bill itself that passed, they will still hate this. Of course they will. Because Fox News hates it. And because Fox News and the base hates it, the politicians hate it. Everyone hates it because, well, it all comes back to Republicans' true ideology. And that is owning the libs, owning Biden at all costs. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.